Right. And of course we want this long enough so that when it sits in there, it bottoms out. Right now, I still need to cut a little bit more. There we go, it looks looking good, right? This setup is a parallel clamp down here. It's just a wooden clamp. And then I have another one, a smaller one, holding that. And then within that smaller one, I just have a little pair of needle nose vice grips. And so that's what I'm going to use to hold on to my terminal. Alright. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is get some regular paste flux. Ta-da! And we're going to coat the entire inside of this terminal. We want to use paste flux because if the metal heats up with oxygen touching it, it'll oxidize, and solder does not like to stick to oxidized metal. So we have that. Now I have my plumbing solder. It'll work just fine. And I'm going to turn on my torch and I'm going to feed in this plumbing solder, right, as it heats up and it starts to melt. Now once I get a big enough pool inside of here, I'm going to dip this in and I'm just going to hold it straight down, and the heat of the solder will heat up the wires and everything will solidify. But before we get doing that, of course we want to put some solder on our wire cable too. There we go. Now I don't want to keep the solder directly in there because it might just melt off from above it. Basically it'll just drip. Okay, there we go. I'm wearing eye protection. You don't want this to pop off in your face. Get that in there. I'm just holding it while it solidifies. There it goes. Looks nice and clean, professional. I did drip a little bit because I used more than I needed. There's that drip. Make sure that you're wearing some closed-toed shoes, not like what I have. All right, now to show you that it's really on there, I'm going to put this in a vise and I'm going to try to pull it apart. You folks can see that it actually works. There we go. Here I am, supporting my weight. It's on there. On my right hand side I have the factory crimp. On my left hand side I have what I soldered here in my garage. Right? It looks nice and clean. Looks factory. Now, here's a tip. Before you dip the copper cable into the terminal, use your flame to warm up the wire just a little bit. Not so much that it oxidizes or so that it burns the rubber, but what happens is if you dip the copper wire into the terminal before it is warmed up, then it cools off the solder as soon as you dip it in. And then it might get stuck halfway in, halfway out, and you have to heat this up so that it heats up the wire, but then you start melting the rubber, as you can see in this example here. I have a little excess right there. So there's a difference. Now you know.